sur mon écran.
Et ça ne marche pas?
Non, je sais pas. Il y a quelqu'un qui parle anglais, par exemple, et je vais voir si est-ce que la traduction, ça marche vers le français ou non.
Ok, Larry, il me semble que tu n'es pas connecté. Je vais t'appeler par WhatsApp parce que là, on est au projeté en direct, là. Je te parle par WhatsApp.
Ok.
We started meeting people now.
Oui.
Yes, good afternoon.
One, two. 1, 2.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, the webinar is supposed to start at 4 exactly, but I can still see people joining. So maybe we can take 1 or 2 minutes. Continue. Welcome. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me. Welcome to this webinar. A webinar that is being organized free trade area agreement that I know all of us have heard about. First of all, my name is David Otieno. I'm a member of the Kenyan Peasant League. I'm a small involvement on matters of policy. Yeah, so today we are coming together for this webinar that has been organized in collaboration of several organizations, including Attack Morocco. We have the Seed Savers Network from Kenya. We have got the Kenyan Peasant League. We have got Association of Tunisian Permaculture. We have got the CDTMF We have the women, the National Alliance for Agroecology, the Gambia. Then we also have the grain and Agro Africa. So this webinar is just about the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. And I think all of us know the influence of free trade area agreements on food production, on seeds, and how the free trade area agreement is finishing or is killing the peasants' way of life. And of course, we have got a team of very able speakers who are going to lead us through this session. But maybe just before I give time to the first speaker, maybe one thing we need to know is that some of the key characteristics of this include issues like liberalization, opening up of our borders, issuing tax holidays for foreign companies. We have issues with the privatization of public sectors. For example, in Kenya, there's already a very spirited process of privatizing the Kenya Seed Company. Yeah, so today we are going to look at some of these. Among our speakers today, we have Mr. Labi Hafid from Morocco, who is going to take us through what is the free trade agreement, how it was negotiated, and who are the biggest winners. And then he will be followed by Francis Ngiri, who is a seed ambassador from Seed Savers Network. Francis is a farmer and is also a part of a campaign aimed at saving seeds and also aimed at challenging the Punitive Seeds and Plant Varieties Act. We'll also be followed by Sahar from Tunisia, who will take us through the implications for farmer-led seed systems and seed sovereignty in Africa. And after that, we'll have Julia Kamau, again from Seed Savers Network Kenya, who will be giving a presentation of how Seed Savers Network is responding to IPR, that is intellectual property rights, and UPO. Then we'll also have Alcala has not joined us, and I'm sure maybe might join us late. So I will straight away invite the first speaker, Mr. Labi Afridi, to take the floor and take us through what is the free trade agreement, how it was negotiated, and the bigger freedom. Welcome, Mr. Labi. The floor is yours.
Larbi, vous voulez commencer?
Mr. Labi, can Labi hear us? Maybe it's network problem.
Just a second, he's joining.
Okay, thank you. But even as he's joining, maybe once he's ready, will let us know. And of course, apart from the African Free Trade Area Agreement, we also have several implications around the regional trade and also international trades, linkages between the Continental Free Trade Area Agreement and WTO. And of course, you know that WTO, especially agreements on agriculture, have been very much detrimental to the peasant way of life. So, Mr. Labi, are you there?
Oui, yes, I'm here.
Okay, welcome. Thank you. Take the floor. Welcome.
Bonjour à tous et à tous. Excusez-moi, juste une minute. Voilà. Aux caméras, voilà. Très bien. Bonjour à tous et à toutes. Concernant mon intervention, je vais parler un petit peu sur l'ASLECAF, c'est quoi tout d'abord, comment il a été discuté et quels sont les bénéficiaires. Donc, tout d'abord, euh, l'ASLECAF, aux zones de libre-échange continentale africaine, il constitue un grand projet de l'Union africaine selon son agenda 2063. Donc, en principe, il va constituer la plus grande zone de libre-échange mesurée par le nombre de pays participants. Donc, son objectif déclaré, c'est quoi? C'est un développement durable et inclusif et créer un marché intégré pour le commerce des biens et des services ainsi que la libre circulation des personnes et des capitaux. Donc, cette zone de libre-échange, il vise la consolidation du marché africain, d'une part, d'autre part, la stimulation du commerce continental et le renforcement de l'intégration régionale. En fait, c'est ce qui déclare les dirigeants africains. Donc, ainsi que la libéralisation de 97% du commerce intra-africain des marchandises. Et cet accord, il comprend différentes règles. Il concerne le commerce, les propriétés intellectuelles, l'investissement et le commerce en ligne. Donc, cet accord, il prétend connecter toute la population africaine, ça veut dire presque 1,3 milliard de personnes dans les 55 pays, sortir, c'est ce qu'elle prétend toujours, sortir 30 millions de personnes de l'extrême pauvreté et développer le commerce intra-africain qui est très faible aujourd'hui en comparaison avec notre continent. Donc, il est estimé à presque 16,8%, alors qu'en Europe, c'est plus que 68%, et en Amérique, c'est 55%, et en Asie, c'est encore 54, c'est presque 54%. Donc, il prétend aussi monter le revenu de l'Afrique de 450 milliards, tant aussi augmenter le revenu de l'Afrique de 454 milliards de dollars d'ici 2035. Donc, cet accord, il y a des petites étapes à travers pour arriver finalement à cet accord. Tout a commencé officiellement en janvier 2012, lorsque la 18e session des chefs d'État et gouvernement de l'Union africaine ont adopté la décision sur l'accélération et la mise en place d'une zone de libre-échange africaine. Donc, mais l'accord est entré en vigueur le 30 mai 2019, alors que c'est juste en octobre 2022 que l'initiative du commerce guidée de l'ASLECAF a été lancée entre 8 États pour piloter le commerce en droit préférentiel de l'ASLECAF. Donc, voilà, grosso modo, dans le peu de temps, ce que je peux dire sur l'ASLECAF. Quelle critique? Donc, l'ASLECAF, il nous donne une illusion sur son panafricanisme. Donc, les chefs d'État, ils prétendent que c'est du panafricanisme, mais en fait, c'est un panafricanisme d'en haut. Ça veut dire que les populations n'ont pas aucune idée, c'est parachuté d'en haut. Donc, c'est un projet non démocratique, en fait, puisqu'il n'y a pas ni discussion ni rien du tout. La ZLICAF a aussi calqué les règles de l'OMC, ce qui montre bien que ce n'est pas un autoprojet, c'est un projet qui est en fait catalysé et incité par les grandes forces impérialistes, notamment l'Amérique, l'Union européenne, la Chine et les institutions financières, Banque mondiale et Banque africaine pour le développement, entre autres. Cet accord, il va menacer la biodiversité, la souveraineté alimentaire sera aussi menacée, et comme tous les accords de libre-échange, les conditions de travail seront certainement dégradées. Donc, ce projet détruira le tissu économique africain, et ça, ce ne sont pas des projections, mais ce sont des faits qu'on a déjà vus dans plusieurs pays, notamment le Maroc, la Tunisie, l'Égypte, qui ont déjà conclu des accords de libre-échange. Donc, il détruira le tissu économique africain, notamment l'agriculture, l'industrie embryonnaire, et aussi, il détruira le tissu social en place. Donc, dans les discussions, on peut développer ces idées-là. Donc, il augmentera le chômage et la précarité aussi. Donc, il détruira malheureusement les connaissances et l'expertise des agriculteurs au profit d'une agriculture d'exportation. Donc, quels sont les bénéficiaires? Les bénéficiaires, certainement, ce seront les dirigeants africains corrompus, ce seront les grands capitalistes africains et surtout, ça sera le grand capital international via ces multinationales et son partenariat avec les grands capitalistes locaux. Donc, on trouve surtout qui envahit maintenant l'Afrique en premier lieu, ce sont les entreprises égyptiennes, nigériennes et marocaines, etc., etc. Donc, ces grandes entreprises, elles sont en partenariat avec les capitalistes, les grands capitalistes ou les multinationales. Donc, en fait, ce sont eux qui vont profiter enfin parce qu'ils tiennent des pourcentages importants dans même ces entreprises qui va conquérir l'Afrique. Aussi, il y a les banquiers. Par la destruction de l'économie locale, les pays auront besoin de plus en plus, auront un besoin plus en plus fort aux dettes. Donc, pour conclure, pour conclure, juste le temps que j'ai, l'AfCFTA, ça sera un vrai entrave pour tout développement de l'Afrique. Il signifie plus de dettes, alors plus d'extractivisme, alors plus de destruction écologique et plus de pauvreté et plus de réfugiés écologiques. Donc tout ça, ça va se passer certainement avec l'AfCFTA. Notre devoir, finalement, c'est de lutter contre ce projet pour un commerce et un complémentariat au profit de ceux qui sont en bas. Et merci. Merci, ça y est, j'ai terminé.
Thank you so much, Comrade Labi, for that elaborate presentation. That is actually giving us a snippet of how the agreement was negotiated. And he has rightly said that the negotiation process did not involve the peasants. If you look at even the various phases for negotiations on key areas, like in property rights, areas like investments, competition policy, in all these areas, the peasants have been locked out. Negotiations on issues like IPR, that deals with seeds and plant varieties patents, issues like GMOs are being negotiated without the involvement of the people. And of course, some of the institutions that have been made by the agreement, if you look at Article 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, all these institutions are not accessible to the peasants. So I agree with Comrade Labi that this agreement is not here to benefit the peasants, but it is here to benefit the transnational corporations who are actually having franchises in Africa. So it's basically a trade agreement aimed at opening up Africa for the TNCs. And that is setting up straight to the second presentation, which is from Mr. Francis Ngiri. Mr. Francis Ngiri is a farmer from Kenya, and he's a seed ambassador. And as Labi has rightly said, that this agreement is not benefiting the peasants. Maybe we want to hear from Francis how are peasants taking it and how are peasants responding. Welcome, Mr. Francis Ngiri.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. David. And here are my presentation as a farmer. These free trade agreements are not assisting us at all, because one thing, we did not initiate that project as farmers. We were not consulted. There was no public participation to ask us whether we want free trade areas. So, and anything, farmers are not involved, it is not ours. We can't own that. So that is someone's agreement, because in farming profession, they are full of brokers. Those people who want to benefit in farming, yes, they are not benefiting. Some are posing as experts and researchers, and we highly suspect those are the people who are maybe asking the authorities to make such agreements. So it does not belong to us as indigenous farmers, because we are not consultant. Secondly, this issue you are taking is this issue of these agreements, we are taking them as a way of bringing foreign seeds which have foreign traits. For example, we have a new variety of pyrethrum which was brought around, which is eaten by pesticides, and the pyrethrum itself should be a pesticide. So we fail to understand this new variety of pesticide which has been brought to us farmers, and it is eaten by the pesticides. What kind of a pesticide is it? And we know it's a seed variety. Yet we know the variety we had, which is indigenous here, even we could not store it in the house because it was smelling a lot. It had a very choking smell. So we suspect most of these things, they want to create room for them. They will come and contaminate or adulterate our indigenous things. So we are suspecting that agreement must be having something which is not good for us farmers. The third thing is that we have a lot of indigenous seeds. Like myself, I have a seed bank called Eden Seed Bank, and we have 119 varieties. Most of them are indigenous seeds, which have not so far been recognized by the government. So we fail to understand the area if they are taking Kenya as a free area for trade, yet they have not recognized our seeds. Why do they want to bring new things, yet they have not recognized ours? In our tradition, we normally say you cannot put off the fire, you cannot go to the neighbor to put off the fire when your place is burning. So we see Kenya.
Apologize, Francis. Can you
Yes?
speak a bit slower for the interpreters? That would be very helpful. Thank you. Thank you. Apologize.
Okay. I don't know where to repeat from there. From where? Should I start again?
No, go ahead. Just continue slower.
Okay.
Thank you.
I was saying, in our tradition, we normally say, you cannot go to put off fire in your neighbor's home if you leave your home being in fire. You have to put off the fire in your home and then go to your neighbor. So if they want to create free trade here, and we are asking where to sell our things, we have indigenous things which we are still saying that which they have not allowed us to sell. Yet they want new things to come by creating free trade, Kenya as a free trade area. We cannot own that process because already we have problems. So Kenya is not free to accommodate other things, yet we have a lot of things here. So that is my submission as a farmer.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much, Francis, for that. And of course, the dilemma of Francis is a dilemma that has been shared by farmers across the continent who are worried because already in our own national legislations, we have a lot of, we have laws that are already criminalizing farmers like Francis from selling, and sharing their seeds. And what we are wondering about is the impact of this. And I think from presentation from Labi and also Francis as a farmer, it is very clear that this agreement is not here to benefit the peasants. And that's why it is important for us also to try and look at how, as peasants and as movements working across the continent, what we are able to do. And I'm happy that Mr. Francis has talked about community seed banks and also serving very much important, and it's actually points to what we can do in our own small ways in our farms to be able to create these viable alternatives. And of course, issues to do with looking at laws that are being used to criminalize the farmer managed seed systems. Yeah, so thank you so much, Mr. Francis. And I believe later on, the listeners will be able to, you can note down your questions and we'll be able to ask as we continue. I want to bring in the next speaker, Sahar from Tunisia. In the next 5 minutes, she's going to tell us about the implications for the farmer-led seed systems, seed sovereignty in Africa. Welcome. I don't know if there's going to be a projection. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Siri. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning for those who it's still morning for them. My name is Sahar Meddeb. I'm a project coordinator with the Tunisian Association for Permaculture. And today my presentation is about the impact of AfCFTA on farmers' managed seed systems. So let's start by clearing up these definitions. So farmer seeds are seeds that farmers select, save, and reproduce season after season. These seeds come from traditional or locally adapted varieties, and farmers manage them without relying on commercial or external or chemical inputs. In other words, farmers take care of their seeds, adapting them to their land and conditions. Next slide, thank you. So a farmer-managed seed system, or as we call it, FAMSS, is a way of organizing seed production and distribution where farmers take control. Unlike formal seed systems, which are run by companies or governments, FAMSS is decentralized. Farmers actually exchange, produce, and share their own seeds, keeping the process local. This system also promotes biodiversity and allows seeds to evolve naturally. It is flexible and it evolves with farmers' needs and local traditions and knowledge. So why are farmers' seeds so important to us? First of all, next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. So first of all, farmer seeds naturally adapt to different environments, reducing the need for chemical inputs. They also contribute to biodiversity, ensuring a variety of crops that can withstand different conditions. And since they aren't controlled by intellectual property laws, farmer seed can be freely exchanged, supporting food sovereignty. Farmer seeds align with local farming techniques and traditional diets, maintaining a connection to agricultural heritage. And as climate change affects agriculture, these seeds are becoming more important. NGOs are increasing supporting efforts to protect them for future generations. Next slide. So yeah, let us talk a little bit about UPOV. So UPOV stands for the International Union for the Protection of New Varieties of Plants. It often prioritizes the rights of breeders over the rights of farmers. Under UPOV's regulations, farmers face restriction on their ability to use, save, and exchange seeds. So this limitation not only hinders farmers' freedom, but also weakens their capacity to adapt crops to local environments, which is a vital step in ensuring agricultural resilience. So UPOV basically focuses on commercial plant varieties, which is also risks marginalized local seeds and farmer-managed seed systems. These seeds are frequently more adapted to local conditions and more resilient to environmental challenges. So by sidelining these seed systems, we are jeopardizing agricultural biodiversity, which is fundamental to sustainable farming and food sovereignty, especially in the face of climate change. So many farmers rely on farmer-managed seed systems. Unfortunately, some provisions within the AfCFTA protocol, particularly those concerning intellectual property rights, could restrict their ability to continue these practices. This is really concerning because if farmers are pushed towards commercial seeds, which are often costly and not well suited for local conditions, they would lose their autonomy over seed and and they would risk becoming dependent on external sources and on big multinationals. This could also lead to a loss of genetic diversity, which is crucial for resilience in agriculture. So, although the AfCFTA protocol claims to support farmers' rights, it actually pushes African countries toward a plant variety protection system that aligns with the World Trade Organization requirements. Right now, about half of African nations already follow the EPAs model. This protocol is likely to cement that even further. The way the protocol balances breeders' rights with farmers' rights and access to genetic resources is pretty unclear. It gives states the option to implement the rules based on their current commitment under organizations like the World Trade Organization or the African Intellectual Property Organization or the African Regional Intellectual Property Organization. With so many countries already using the EPAs model, it becomes really hard to break away from that pattern. What's even more concerning than the EPAs itself, it doesn't align well with the right of farmers, as recognized by CHIRPA and UNDRAP. In the end, we are clearly left with a system that favors breeders over farmers, making it harder to safeguard farmers' rights and maintain access to farmers' seed, both of which are crucial for food sovereignty and sustainability across Africa. So I'll try to go quickly and take a closer look on key articles in the AfCFTA protocol. So we have Article 8, which touches on the protection of new plant varieties, which is, however, the language in this article is vague when it comes to farmers' rights. This lack of clarity could make it harder for farmers to protect their local seeds, which is the backbone of farmer-managed seed systems. Article 12, for example, also focuses on patents, but also falls short in addressing farmers' rights, particularly their ability to sow, plant, and select specific varieties. There are other articles in the protocol that raise concern too, such as Article 17, 18, and 25. So, as we examine the impact of the AfCFTA on agriculture, one of the key concerns is the potential for increased exposure to genetically modified organisms and chemical pesticides. In African farming system, by promoting agriculture trade liberalization and expanding market access, the AfCFTA could open the doors for these products to enter African markets more easily. And with tariff barriers lowered and the growing influence of international agribusiness, countries that currently have stricter regulation on GMOs and pesticides might feel the pressure to relax their standards in order to compete. So this could undermine national efforts to protect the environment, preserve biodiversity, and ensure the health of its populations. So to conclude, right now, the AfCFTA tends to favor large industrial agriculture and big corporations, leaving small-scale farmers behind and ignoring their rights. The intellectual property rules make this worse by giving more importance to commercial breeders while focusing on GMOs and industrial farming methods. This puts too much power in the hands of a few companies and makes it harder for small farmers to get and manage their own seeds. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Sahaf, for highlighting that and actually even mentioning several articles in the protocol and the agreement that are actually an affront to farmer managed seed systems. And generally, as you have rightly said, is that the agreement is actually not recognizing the right to farmers, or right of farmers to food sovereignty, to seed sovereignty, the right of the farmers and the smallholder, the peasants, to decide their way of production. You have rightly linked it with the international treaty and also the UNDROP where Article 9 and Article 19, respectively, recognizes the farmer's right to save, exchange, and share their seeds. So I think even as we are making this discussion, it is important for us to know that the agreement is starting on a wrong premise, in the sense that it is not legitimately meeting the aspirations of the African continent towards moving towards food sovereignty. And it is basically trying to put the food systems in the continent at the hands of the few transnational corporations. Now, next in line is Julia Kamau. Julia Kamau from Seed Savers Network. Again, just to build on to what Francis, Sahar, and I've talked about, Julia is going to take to us specifically through what Seed Savers Network is doing as a response to the international property rights and the UPOV that Julia, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you. Thank you so much, David. Thank you for this opportunity, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all from where you're joining from. My name, sorry, I think we are muted.
Someone mute. Go ahead, Julia.
All right. Thank you very much. So my name is Julia Kamau, and sorry, there's a prompt on my, so I am Julia Kamau, and I work for Seed Savers Network, which I will give a short introduction of who we are. Today in my presentation, I'm going to cover a few dangers on the African continental free trade that is posing to farmer managed seed system, and some of the efforts that as a network we've been able to do to counter a few challenges, including the UPOV that my previous presenter has already outlined and what it is. So Seed Savers Network, we are a civil society organization. We are a network of farmers, and one farmer has already spoken, Francis. He's a lead farmer in a village in Kenya, in Makongo. So maybe next slide, please. So we are working with over 4,000 farmer groups in Kenya. And these are organized in households. So and of course, as we go and as we talk about seed, I think it's clear that when we say, and this slogan, I think most of you have heard that, whoever controls your seed, controls your food, controls your future. For us, our slogan is, as a network, as a network of farmers, is we believe that we need to have our own seeds, which will secure our own food and our future and the future generations. Next slide, please. So as I was saying, we are working with over 4,000 farmers organized in registered groups, either cooperatives, self-help groups, CBOs. And this, we've been able so far to reach and work with over 86,000 farming communities and households. And as a network, we have a network of over 74 community seed banks in Kenya that we are working with. Next slide, please. Our mission as a network is to conserve agrobiodiversity. And also we do that through using traditional knowledge that farmers have, their own traditional knowledge, and what our forefathers, our grandparents were doing. This is what basically we are doing. And I know even with as we talk about the free trade, what the conversation is that people should leave these antiquated methods of farming but these are what is providing resilience to communities. Please, next slide. So as I talk about this, I want to start with the first issue on seed sovereignty. So one of the effects of the free trade, that is the African continental free trade, number one is that we shall continue having importations. Like for example, here in Kenya, we are currently importing over 95% of exotic vegetables. We are also importing 70% of our grains, and that is mostly maize. But on a flip side, and what is the situation currently is that in Kenya, 90% of the seeds that we have comes from the farmer managed system. It comes from the informal. And of course, these statistics that I have displayed here is a clear evidence. I'll put my video off. It's a clear evidence of what the informal seed system is contributing. So this means that most of the seeds are with the small scale farmers, and it comes from the informal, the markets, and not from the companies. But the narrative that is being sold out, even with the free trade, is that the people don't have seeds and we need to bring them seeds, and we need to, you know, they will die with hunger. But this is just a narrative to advance business agendas. So these importations that I'm talking about, and one of the effects that if we open up these trade areas, is that we shall continue creating a dependency kind of situation in our communities, where we have this notion and this narrative, even with the many adverts on television, where people are being told, your seeds are not going to grow. You need to buy these seeds that we are bringing to you. So these percentages of importation are only the 10% that is in the formal, that comes from formal. Most of them are vegetables and grains, but the rest of these other seeds are contributed from the informal, farmer managed. And also, as in relation to sovereignty of food and seed, there's the issue of biodiversity loss. So this narrative that is being sold, that we shall be able to solve our food security situation by having companies bring seeds to us to solve the food security, it will create a monocropping kind of farming systems where we shall lose our diversities. Yeah, so that is one of the major dangers. Next slide, please. As there is one of the proposals in the African continental free trade is harmonization of seed laws, where we are seeing with this free trade, the main agenda is power, control, and money. That's all. These are punitive and draconian laws that will continue to undermine farmers' rights, because if you look at most of the seed laws, and particularly in Kenya, the Seed and Plant Varieties Act that even the farmer Francis shared, it limits farmers to continue sharing and exchanging the seeds, and that we have borrowed that from UPOV. So particularly the laws that are being harmonized are focused on private sector growth only, and they continue to focus on the protection of those varieties and intellectual property on them. So it means that we are not even focusing on the rights of farmers and farmers' seeds. Please, next slide as I continue. I want to give a very short story of what happened in Kenya, an example of Kenya.
Yes, Julia. Also, the Swahili translation, I think you need to speak louder, the Swahili translation. Go ahead, Julia.
Sorry, are you able to hear me, please?
Yeah, I'm able to hear you. I'm just saying that should be concluding. And also the Swahili translator should speak a bit louder.
All right. So in Kenya, we had somebody tried to to steal a community grass. And this was only because they are able to do documentation. Next slide, please. So some of the efforts that we have done as a network is we have worked with communities to empower them to know how to document their local varieties. So we've done a lot of participatory characterization and documentation, where we were able to document over 66 local cultivars of farmers in Kenya. So these are just pictorials. Next slide. Around the same documentation, these are the 66 varieties that we've been able to have them summarized in a description kind of way, because you realize that what is happening with the biopiracy and the UPOV laws, the moment we are able to document the strength of documenting local varieties, we cannot have somebody coming from anywhere to steal our local varieties. Next slide, please. As I conclude, we've also been able to develop a local document that is able to govern all the seeds within the network as seeds as commons, where we are also ensuring that no one can come and patent and get patent rights to the seeds that belong to communities. So that is the other effort. The last slide as next slide. Also the case in court that was mentioned, we have been able to mobilize and support farmers to be in this case. And finally, we have been able to promote for informal seed markets. Next slide. Informal seed markets where farmers are able to share the diversity, exchange with each other, and be able to tap into this market, seed market, which is a multi-billion market. And actually, farmers should be the ones reaping the benefits and not multinationals. I submit.
Yes, thank you so much, Comrade Julia from Seed Savers Network. And I think Julia has made a very good presentation on how we can fight back in our own small way. That the other seed bank, that's one of the ways through which we can be able to fight back. And of course, Julia has also told us a very important process of documenting our own seed, defining them. Because sometimes you find that we tend to wait and only react when the multinationals have come. And I think this is a very good step that should be related by farmer groups and movements across the continent in a way of trying to fight back. And of course, massive mobilization against the Free Trade Area Agreement, pinpointing its flaws and how it is strangling our peasant way of life. So maybe before I invite the next speaker, I would open maybe for just one or two people who might be having any questions, any comments on the past speakers, and of course on the chat. I'm seeing a few comments from here. I don't know if maybe Susan can help us read the questions. So I go to read the question, Susan.
Okay. The first question is from, I think, thank you. Thank you. The first question welcome. Is from Transform Trade. And I think, Saha, could you take that? Have any African governments resisted the inclusion of UPOV 91 in the African Continental Free Trade Area? Are any African countries fully compliant with the UNDROP?
For now?
Yes, maybe.
So I'll give the example of Tunisia. The Tunisian government isn't resisting to the inclusion of UPOV 91 because Tunisia is a member of UPOV 91 since 2004. So I believe that the Tunisian government is actually not against this at all.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Any other question from the chat or anybody from the floor? You are free to come in before we invite the next speaker, please. Yeah, there are also several comments on the chat. We have Oliat. I believe Oliat is from Zimbabwe, if I'm not wrong. Oliat is saying, we are not promoting food security, but promoting is just trying to give the broader meaning of food sovereignty, which is not just about availability of food, but accessibility of food. And accessibility here starts from the seeds itself. Who owns the seeds? How accessible are the seeds? Do we have to wait for the seeds to come? I think that's a very key issue that we need to look at. And you find that the Continental Free Trade Area agreement is basically said not recognizing the right of people and the right of countries to determine their own food systems and their own food policies, because it is basically leaving it at the hands of a few multinationals. I've also seen, is it Susan Owiti, the free trade agreements allow the dumping of goods to our countries, making it difficult for our farmers to sell their own produce. Yeah, that's the agreements, like, for example, a promotion of liberalization, which is clearly prominent in almost all the protocols of promoting free trade, provision of tax holidays for foreign companies. And I think Labi mentioned that who are these African companies who want to move trade? Who are these traders? And I think it's very important for us to explicitly term trade or traders. And you see, I believe a trader in Mariwa market, where I come from, cannot even dream of selling her products in Kano Plains in Nigeria. So we need to also to characterize the kind of traders. And like we said, these are transnational corporations with local franchises. And you hear them mention, we want a visa-free Africa. We want Africa which you can move freely. Ideally, it is not for me and you to move freely, but it is for the transnational corporations to save money, to have multiple entries between the countries. And I come from the border between Tanzania and Kenya, and you can see the struggle of local traders just trying to import rice or bring goods from Tanzania into Kenya through Sirare border. It's very difficult. So it is very important what has been said there, that this is an agreement that is putting us into a lot of jeopardy. I don't know if is there anybody who wants to make a comment or a question, and up to this point, maybe I would want us now to focus on, and of course, Seed Savers Network has given us, I can see a chat. I would like to share IBON. That's Carolina Muturi. I would like to share IBON Africa's primer on African Free Trade Area that can be used by CSOs. Yeah, the link is in the chat. And I've also seen a link from Lubega. Is it Lubega? Siatini, who has also shared a link, which is a policy brief on building the resilience of the farmer seed systems amidst corporate capture. I think these are very useful information that we can be able to use. I can see Mturi, good afternoon. I am Karina Mturi, representing IBON Africa. Great conversation here. My question to the panelists: what's the status of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement implementation so far? Is Africa ready? Maybe that one can be taken before we go to the next round. Maybe I don't know. Can this be taken by maybe either Labi or Sahar? What is the status of implementation of the agreement now? The question from the chat. Either Sahar or Labi can come in, or any other person from the panelists, or even the people attending.
S'il vous plaît, est-ce que vous pouvez reprendre la question?
He's asking you just to repeat the question.
Okay, Carolina Muturi is asking what's the status of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement implementation so far? Considering that perhaps if you look at the agreement, there are issues to do with on phase 2 negotiations. Have they started? Are they on, or are they finished? Go ahead.
OK. Alors, la situation actuelle de l'accord est telle que 54 pays presque ont juste signé l'accord, mais en fait, l'accord face à des grandes difficultés qui sont liées surtout à la mise en œuvre, des règles de l'ASDK. Et dans mon intervention, je viens de dire que seulement 8 pays en octobre 2022 qui arrivent à commencer pardon, 8 pays qui sont entrés dans l'ASLECAF pour piloter le commerce en droit concurrentiel de l'ASLECAF. Et cela montre bien sûr, je répète alors, donc je dis que puisqu'en décembre, donc j'ai dit que juste en octobre 2022, seulement 8 États africains qui ont commencé à entrer en commerce selon les droits préférentiels de l'ASLECAF. Alors que l'accord est entré en vigueur depuis 30 mai 2019. Cela montre bien les problèmes opérationnels que rencontre cet accord. Alors, je pense, à mon avis, que effectivement, vu l'écart entre les économies africaines, des écarts qui sont très énormes. Il y a des économies qu'on peut dire qui sont développées ou semi-développées, alors que d'autres, elles sont encore dans une situation économique encore plus faible. Donc, il y a une grande hétérogénéité entre les économies africaines, d'une part. D'autre part, et d'autre part, ce qui est important, c'est que cet accord ne tient pas en compte cette situation économique et sociale de l'Afrique. Alors que la majorité du commerce, la, major- la majorité du commerce africain se fait d'une manière non formelle, se fait d'une manière non formelle, notamment par des femmes. Donc, il n'y a pas grande présence d'entreprises qui ont trop développé et qui ont une expérience importante dans le commerce international. Donc, cette imposition de cet accord par les forces impérialistes qui sont en rivalité, non, je dis pas les forces impérialistes qui sont en rivalité en Afrique, donc ce sont les problèmes, ce sont les vraies entraves qui ne laissent pas l'accord se passe d'une manière simple et fluide. En plus que cet accord, comme je viens de le dire, en dépit de ce que je viens de dire, donc cet accord aussi n'apporte pas d'intérêt aux populations africaines. Donc, c'est normal qu'il ne va pas trouver, donc c'est normal qu'il ne va pas trouver un soutien populaire Donc, il est loin des intérêts. Il est loin des intérêts de la population africaine et je pense qu'il va au contraire lui apporter des catastrophes très graves sur le plan du chômage, sur le plan de social, sur le plan économique. Donc, seule une minorité qui va en tirer profit. C'est pourquoi n'avance pas mieux la cause. Merci.
Yeah, thank you so much, Labi, for that elaborate response. And I've seen an hand from Viwata, but just before Viwata comes in, I have seen a comment from Karim. Karim is telling us that the trade agreement is not benefiting Africa, and we should be able to develop our homegrown seeds. We also have another comment from Zikona Kunene. From this presentation, it is made so clear that poverty is orchestrated by the capitalist system. It is possible to feed every human being. Also, the health system is getting bloated due to the type of food that we have access to. And the pharmaceutical industry is one of the investment option. Lastly, you can never talk about food sovereignty without overlapping the issue of owning land. What they do in some countries is rent you land and then kill small-scale farmers. So that's a very important comment, linking the issue of the junk food to the pharmaceutical industry, and it shows you a clear web of operation and a clear web of grabbing resources, because they sell you disease and also sell you medicine. That's a very good point there. So Viwata, I've seen a hand up there before I come back to the comments. Thanks, Karim from Nigeria. Viwata, your hand is up. Sorry, we can't hear you. Viwata Mpwapwa, we can't hear you. I don't know if it's from my side.
No, it's for all today.
Oh, I can't hear him. Can others hear him?
No.
There must be a problem with Mwata Mpwapwa. Can you maybe check your audio connection? Because I can see you are unmuted, but we can't hear you speaking.
We are not getting him.
Yeah, we are not getting him. Please, can you sort out that problem? Can you try speaking again?
Yeah,
Hello? Can you go ahead now? Okay, yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Please go closer to the computer. Your sound is very far.
Mviwata Mpwapwa, can you move closer to the gadget? Yes, perhaps putting off your camera could also help. Go ahead, Mviwata Mpwapwa.
Mimi na maswali mawili napenda kuuliza. Swali la kwanza, kwa nini mbegu zilizoboreshwa serikali imekuwa ikizipa kipaumbele kuliko mbegu za asili ambazo tunatumia sisi wakulima wadogo? Swali la pili, napenda niulize kwamba mikataba hii ya soko huria ilisainiwa na nani? Wakulima walishiriki au ni mabepari tu? Asante.
Yes, thank you so much, Biwata Mpwapwa, for that. And the questions are, why are our governments giving priority to big companies over the smallholder peasants and also the local companies or so? Then he also was asking, the second question is, who are the signatories to these agreements and how are they arrived at? Maybe this one can also be taken. I can see a second question from the Water headquarters so that they can be taken together. Water headquarters. The Water headquarters, I can see your hand up. The Water headquarters, can you hear me? Okay, maybe. Yes, the Water headquarters. Hand is up. Okay, maybe as they are preparing, we can start with the two questions. Why? I don't know who can answer that. Julia.
I can
Yes,
attempt
Julie,
to
your hand is
answer.
up.
Oh, Julie?
Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to attempt to answer the first question on why. And I think mainly it's political move and a lot of, in my view, there is, of course, promises from the multinational companies for even some funding. So it's also very political move and selfish interest, and also a lot of need for those handouts and money from this. So it's more like a corruption kind of situation. So of course, with the local seeds, there is no income coming in for governments. So definitely the interest here is money. But yeah, I submit CD, maybe more.
Thank you so much, Julia, for that. And of course, you have actually said that you find that agreements around the trade organization, like agreements on agriculture, calling on liberalization, removing of borders, and of course, again, issues of debts. Because if you read very keenly the history of South America, how debts were used in the 18th century to be able to promote skilled free trade area agreements. So there's a very big link between debts between our countries. So, for example, Tanzania, for example, is unable to service their debts. They have to go for another round of agreements to postpone the payment. And during these periods, this is where some of these agreements are pushed against on the throats of our country. And of course, Julia has talked about politicization of that. And I've seen Julie's hands. Julie, we have Julia and Julie. I don't know if Water headquarters can speak now. If Water headquarters can speak, then Julie.
Sorry, Sidi, Alkali is
seen...
here in case of. Alkali can do his presentation.
Okay, fine. Maybe we hear from, I don't know, Nyeko. Okay, maybe because we have another speaker, Alkali Sise, from Alkali Sise from the Gambia. Alkali Sise told us that we have to put the word the Gambia. So Alkali Sise is also going to speak to us about what does it mean for the smallholder farmers. I think this is a very nice trend because, of course, we have had presentations from people who have had an expert outlook of the free trade agreement, and of course, we're also speaking. We also the people or the smallholder farmers themselves. So Alkali Sise is going to speak to us again just to strengthen what Julia and Francis and Sahar have spoken about. What is the impact of this agreement with the smallholder farmers. Alkali Sise from the Gambia, welcome.
Oh, good afternoon or good evening from the Gambia, and I'm very sorry for coming in late. I am also attending another meeting in Senegal on agroecology. So this is what took me much longer. And by the way, you know, when I saw the GMT too, I thought it is 14 hours GMT in my country. That is the reason why I am logging in very late, because I went to the field with a team in Senegal here to visit an agroecology farm. But I'm saying a big sorry, and then thank you for pushing the webinar to where we are today. Moving forward, because I know time is not on our side. My name is Alkali MFCC, and then I am an agroecology practitioner. At the same time, I work with the National Alliance for Agroecology, the Gambia. So moving on, my topic is to discuss on what it means. What does the AfCFTA mean to small scale farmers? So I will not talk on what AfCFTA mean, because I know deliberation has been going on, and then the previous speakers have talked about that already. So we can just move these slides and then go to another slide. Yeah, so moving on, since my task is to talk about what does the AfCFTA mean to small-scale farmers, it's important that we know who are the small-scale farmers or the family farmers. We all know that the family farmers are the people that rely on family labor, and then, you know, they constitute 60% of the land. They work on the 60% of the land, 62% of the land in sub-Saharan Africa. And, you know, they are about 60% of the farms and smallholder farmers, 1 hectare, meaning these people all over Africa, you cannot talk about farming if you didn't mention these people. And they further have 95% of the farms are smaller than 5 hectares, meaning you cannot compare their smaller land size with the commercial farmers, these multinationals, but yet still they supply food to the African population. So, but then they have different spectrum, like we said. They are not only limited to farming, but when you move on, you realize that these people, they have different spectrum. They are into livestock, into crop productions, and then they are also into staple food to cash crop producers. They are all involved in them. And then, by the way, both the subsistence and the local markets, they are involved in it. So therefore, they rely mostly on traditional methods, which they do. Can we move to the other slides? The second slide, the other slides, please. Okay, like the one that you passed. Okay, good. Now go back from livestock. You understand? They are involved into livestock, into crop productions, and into staple food and cash crop. Move back a little bit, please. Slide 4. Exactly. So you see, and yet still they have this bigger role in the market, and both under the subsistence and then the market. You understand? Supporting. But before coming to supporting these people, when you look at around, they are involved into non-irrigation, into non-chemical fertilizers in their farm, into non-commercial seed varieties, and they are significant to the ecosystem preservations and the environmental, you understand, protection. So these small-scale farmers, they are practicing the best farming system that is being called for today, and they have been practicing it for so long. So moving on, now we are trying to treat on the topic. The topic says, what does it mean to them now, the AfCFTA? The AfCFTA means a lot that they don't call for. Like when you look at the economic partnership agreements that African countries have with committees with the West to abolish, you understand, tariffs or to put in low tariffs for these EU industrial products, and then coming years, and to maintain that the low tariffs are being applied to them. So these low tariffs are for the commercials and the European industries, not for the small-scale farmers. And you expect the small-scale farmers to compete with them. This will automatically kill the small-scale farmers directly as producers to producers and as producers to their consumers, which is the market. You cannot give low tariffs to multinational companies, to European companies, and you ask them to compete with small-scale farmers. They have more resources than us. They have everything it takes to defeat us in the market that belongs to us. So you are automatically killing us. Move on to the other slides, please.
You should be concluding, Comrade.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So moving on, I believe that we cannot also compete with them. It doesn't mean nothing to the small scale. It means that the small scale farmers will also be exporters, and it means that the Western exporters will be happy about the meat, the packs, the milk, the powder, the cereals, and then the tomato that they are taking from that they are using to make sure that the African, without controls and then restrictions, they will make sure that all what they want to export, they will export it without any control or any restrictions. And then the entire African market will be now open to the European exports. And then the EU agribusiness will also be happy because they are damaging, you understand, they are damaging the agribusiness of these small scale farmers. And then the exchange in competition, it means that the competition that the small scale farmers will be competing with the West, they can never stand them. It will lead to unscrupulous middlemen who will change the labels and trade on foreign goods in the name of the AfCFTA to the detriment of the small-scale farmers as well. Also, a significant loss of resources by small-scale farmers. Farmers, due to the inadequate storage and transportation system, they can never compete the multinationals. They can never be able to compete the commercial farmers. It means that there will be poor labor conditions and job insecurity for small-scale farmers, especially for women and then young people as well. It means also poor post-harvest losses for small-scale farmers. You understand? So to conclude, I will say there will be low expansions of commercial interests within the agricultural sector as well for the small-scale farmers. And there will be lack of security on the protections of public goods and then essential services, especially small-scale farmers from privatization due to trade liberalization. And then the free trade agreement also, like the FTA, are not usually associated with climate-friendly compared to the practice of the small-scale farmers, as many people currently perceive trade as a major contributor to carbon emission. And the reality is that it caused drought into so many parts of Africa, whereby small-scale farmers be the victims when there is drought. So in short, this is what I am able to gather. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much.
I think I am a bit faster than the...
Thank you. Thank you so much, comrade, for that good presentation. Of course, sorry for taking you very fast. I hope you can hear me. Well, I think there are also, what you have raised is very critical about the link between the trade and grabbing of natural resources, and the link between trade and grabbing of public goods, waters, forests, and generally grabbing our livelihood, and also how it is also a big promoter of climate change through promoting fossil fuel intensive production systems. So that's very critical. And maybe before I give the water, there are a couple of questions on the chat that perhaps we have Tabby, Seed Savers Network, asking how do the intellectual property rights provisions within the trade agreement impact smallholder farmers and seed sovereignty in Africa, and the challenges, opportunities. And then also we have Dr. Sarah Olembo talking about farmer managed seed systems. What concerns are there regarding phytosanitary barriers among African countries? And we have Theodora Pius from Viwata, who is telling us that agreement is more than a trade deal that limits African way of seed sharing. It's a test showing to what extent is Africa able to decide on itself, safeguard its sovereignty, and promote its development agenda. So she's asking for who, definitely not for Africa. And of course, I want to welcome Nicholas, Comment Nicholas, just to also try, I know he's also following the question in the chat, just to come in and try to give us some of the answers as we go to the tail end of the debate. And I would urge us also to start speaking towards what is the way forward. Should we just analyze it and leave that is bad, or what should we be able to do? So welcome, Comrade Nicholas. Comrade Nicholas, are you with us?
Yes, I am, but I'm sorry, I was dealing with a technical issue and I wasn't able to hear what you were saying. So I'm afraid I won't be able to answer your question because I didn't hear it.
No, what I'm saying is that there are a couple of questions here that perhaps might need your input. One of them is, just a minute, it's a question from...
I can read it, Nicola.
Dr. Sarah Olembo. Okay, please go ahead, Susan, and read the questions.
Okay, so the first question is, how do the intellectual property rights provisions within the AfCFTA impact smallholder farmers and seed sovereignty in Africa? And what challenges or opportunities do they present for local seed systems? And I think the other question which you addressed earlier, Nicola, and just to touch up a bit on it, was the question around if countries on the African continent are trading with each other now.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I think both these questions have already been answered. I think like the second one is the easiest one because I think Laubi mentioned that earlier on, that even though the agreement has been officially not implemented, but officially in place since 2019, only 7 countries have started to implement the agreement since in October 2022. And the reason for that is that they haven't agreed on all the tariff schedules and the rules of origin. So it's a very difficult agreement to implement because it was signed before they had agreed on every single part of the agreement, which means that we don't really know how long it will take. We know for sure that they still haven't agreed on all the rules. So it might take some more time before the full agreement is implemented between all the countries. And with regards to intellectual property rights, yeah, I think this was clearly said in the presentations as well. But the problem is that we don't have all the text, and one of the main issues around this agreement is like the negotiating process has been very opaque. We don't have access to all the texts because some of them haven't been finalized yet. So if we look at the intellectual property protocol, for example, it is still very vague. There is some language included that we see in other free trade agreements, so typical language that you will find in other free trade agreements. But as far as the details are concerned, they are still negotiating some annexes, and most notably annexes on patents, annexes on plant variety. So as far as we can see, we know from the other parts of the text that this agreement has gone very far as trade liberalization is concerned. But in order to answer very specific questions, it is still quite difficult because they haven't finalized all the text, which makes this agreement very like a different type of agreement, different from all the other free trade agreements that have been negotiated. But what we know for sure is like every time a new text comes out, it seems very radical in terms of trade liberalization. And sometimes even it goes even further than what we have seen in trade agreements coming from the United States, for example. So it is worrisome, I think, for African people and for African farmers, because we've been mostly talking about African farmers in this webinar. And I can add that on the website that we're working on, which is called bilaterals.org, we have leaked all the text of the agreement, so you can find all this text on our website. And as soon as we will have new information and new text coming out, we will publish them for sure. So I would recommend that you check out our website on a regular basis.
And Nicola, the other question is from Dr. Sarah Olembo. What concerns are there regarding phytosanitary barriers among African countries? And I think tying that in with the question from the farmers in Viwata in Tanzania was the question around basically transparency and the signing of the agreement, who was there, who was consulted, and all of that. So maybe if you tie that in together, I think those were the two questions that I saw in the chat.
In terms of transparency, I mean, there's no transparency. It's very opaque. So that's one issue. And with regards to the questions on phytosanitary barrier, I'm not 100% sure. I say actually, and I can only answer what we know, and we don't know everything so far, as I've mentioned. But one thing for sure is like this agreement is pushing very far in terms of trade liberalization.
Okay, thank you so much, comrades and friends. The webinar was scheduled to take place 1 hour 30 minutes, and as you know, we have interpreters, and of course, there's a live stream going on. The interest that has been generated by this discussion is clearly showing the need for more of such engagements around this instrument and others. And I think what is coming out very clearly, and if you look at the comments here, is what are we doing? Julie, we have people talking about what should we do. I think Seed Savers Network, and we've had very good presentations of what's happening in Uganda. I think one thing is that we need to take advantage of our own country systems and try to look at how can we be able to compel our own countries to make the text public. And I think the case in Kenya, where we have seen Kenyans going to court to challenge selling of the airport. So we need to do an analysis of African countries and see where can we be able to push. And of course, apart from intensifying saving of seeds, establishment of food cooperatives like the KPL now. And I know Seed Savers Network talking about documentation, providing these essential services that are lacking, because that's where the transnational corporations come in. So it's very much critical, and I think all of us who have registered for this webinar, we shall get back to you for subsequent activities. And of course, we are calling upon all the organizations here to join the group, because this webinar has been organized by around 6-7 organizations, but we need more and more groups to join in. And perhaps it's important to inform us what you as a country or as an organization is doing towards challenging this trade agreement, so that in the coming days, then we are able to feed into the ongoing process, and of course, looking at how can we be able to legally challenge this agreement at the continental level within the existing instruments, at the regional level, or even at our national jurisdictions, because it's very much important as it is coming here, because the scope is too wide. Trading goods, trading services, investments, IP, and it is very sad, as Nicola said, that the texts are very much secret. It is something that we need to and raise, because I know even we have been following up the issue of the US-Kenya STIP, and it has been very difficult to get the texts from the Kenyan side. And of course, I think this is some of the issues that we also need to look into. So I want to thank also all of us, the speakers, for finding time around their busy schedule. And of course, the organizers for this, the translators. There's no revolution in that translation, taking their time. And of course, all the people who have joined from different sports. I've seen comments from Duata, Uganda, across the continent. And of course, even comrades from West Africa. Thank you so much for joining this webinar. And we shall be coming back to you soon with further information. But the struggle against the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement must go on. And of course, as La Via Campesina, I can't finish by without mentioning that as La Via Campesina, right national trade framework. And I think this is a framework that we are pushing, and it is a framework that is proposing alternative to WTO systems and to the free trade agreement systems that are being peddled by the multinational corporations. So we are also going to be organizing sessions to be able to get inputs from the continent and from the organizations on this new trade framework and how we think it should. So thank you so much. I don't know if we have any comment from maybe, I don't know, Monica, Susan, but if there's no any other final words, I want to thank you again. Of course, it's morning in other areas. Yeah, so thank you so much, comrades. I don't know, is
thank
there,
you.
Monica or
Thank
Susan,
you.
anything?
Thank you. Good
Thank
evening.
you.
Good night.
Good evening.
Thank you so much, comrades.
Thank you.
We are
Thank you.
ending the bye.
Yes,
Thank you so
sorry,
much,
sorry to the
everyone.
speakers.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you so
for
much.
the bright. Thank you.
Merci.